Why and when should I form a legal entity for my business? A lot of people start a business as a sole proprietor. It's just them. They don't have any employees. They're just trying to start some new business, which is fine. But at some point, as the business grows, there are reasons that you should form a corporation or a limited liability company, an LLC, for your business. Now, why do you form a legal entity? Because the business might have liabilities. The business could get sued, an employee sues for something, a vendor sues for something, there's an accident on a job site, and there's a lawsuit. And those are pretty common in California. They happen all the time. People get sued. And so you want to protect your personal assets from your business assets. So the owner of the business shouldn't be forced to pony up their personal assets if something happens in the business and it gets sued. So you form a legal entity to limit personal liability of the owners and management. Also, the legal entity becomes a party to any contract. You sign a lease, you sign a contract with a vendor, a manufacturer, a supplier. The actual party signing the contract and liable for the obligations and any debts involved in that contract is the corporation or the LLC and not the individual owner. That becomes very important to help protect from personal liability as well. Often when you want to hire employees and limit liability, forming a legal entity also helps so that the employee can sue the legal entity and not you personally because that's who the employer was. There can also be tax deductions and other tax reasons that will help by forming a legal entity versus having a sole proprietorship in terms of what deductions you can take and things like that. Privacy can also be an issue where you've got people who are worried about, we don't want to know who the owners of business are. And so you set up a corporation or an LLC, and whatever name is being used for that corporation is the owner versus that person. Also, setting up a corporation or LLC gives sort of a brand or an image as a bigger company than just an individual like Joe's Plumbing would versus some other corporate name for giving a brand. Now, when do you form a legal entity? Some of the triggers, it's always good to do it early on in the process of setting up a business, but obviously there are some costs involved. So typically when you hire employees, it's a good idea to set up a legal entity if you don't already have one. You have partners or other owners because you want written instructions on how things are going to be managed, operated, ownership, all those things in writing. And typically a legal entity is going to be the best way to do it. It also prepares for what I call a business divorce. If one of the 2 or 3 or 4 of you wants to walk away, gets divorced, dies, those kind of things. It's easier in a corporation and LLC. Anytime you start having significant operations, you start making a couple $100,000 in revenue per year, then your exposure, potential liability becomes greater. Just like when you start gaining more assets, if you've got more money in the bank, you're a potential target to creditors and their attorneys for lawsuits, anywhere from injury on the premises of a business, employees lawsuits for wrongful termination or wage and hour violations or anything. If you want to buy real estate, it's a good idea to put it in the name of a legal entity, whether it's for a business or even for personal reasons. If you want to raise capital or expand your business, most financing sources are going to expect that your business is a corporation or an LLC, or at least that you form that before they'll actually give you the money.